I'm Annie Olivecrona, and I'm Swedish originally, but I have lived here in Kenya for nearly 40 years now, and I work with chimpanzees mainly.
Why are chimps so important?
Chimpanzees are the human being's closest relative. They share nearly 99% of our genes, so they are so close to us, it's unreal. They have the same need as us. They have the same feelings. They moan, they laugh, they cry, they throw tantrums, they get angry, they have warfare, they protect their territory. There's not much difference between them and us. And why should we lose them? It's also heritage to Africa. So it's very, very, very important that we conserve the animals. And chimpanzees and gorillas and bonobos are the three apes on this continent, and it's very important that we preserve them. The reason why they are threatened is because people hunt them, and unfortunately people in Central and Western Africa, they eat them. It's part of what we call bushmeat there. They say that it's a tradition, but it isn't a tradition for the majority of them. It's become a fad, a bit like, it's not a European's tradition to eat Russian caviar and drink champagne either. So you could say it's the same thing. And also, unfortunately, recently, a lot of them are disappearing. They take the babies and take them to zoos. And they have gone to a lot of the Arab countries and to China en masse of the last few years. And you can imagine, to take one baby chimp, you have to shoot the whole group. So if you see one live baby chimp, you can count at least 10 dead chimps.
Wow.
So
this is all in black market in...
Yes, on not right papers, if any. And that's why it is so important that it's stopped and that something is done about it. And the story I want to tell you is when I went to South Sudan and rescued some baby chimps during the war. And actually your Auntie Paula Kahumbu was very much involved.
What did she do? What did you do?
Well, it was not that easy because, as you know, there was a civil war in this great big country called Sudan. And these chimpanzees were in the south. But according to all the rules and regulations, you had to get the permits from Khartoum. And that was not easy. We managed to do it. We managed to get that. And we also got the permits from Garang's people, from a general who was in charge of all the wildlife. His name is Alfred Akwach. And even today, he's a very, very good friend of mine.
Why was it so difficult for you to get the permit?
Because there was a war. And also the logistics of getting the chimps and getting them out. You can imagine, it was not just two factions fighting, it was actually 4 different factions fighting each other. But we managed, because of a lot of help from friends here in Kenya. We went to Lokichokyo. Paula came with me. Then she wasn't allowed to come into southern Sudan. Don't ask me why. I carried on with a plane that was sponsored by IFO, actually, and flew into Yambio airport. And the grass was so high on the airstrip that the propeller was actually like a grass cutter. So we cut the grass as we landed. And there was Evelyn standing with these 6 chimpanzees. One was called Saidia, and she had been burnt. All her back was burnt. And I must tell the stories about the 2 of those other chimps. One is Mimi, and she was kept as a mascot by the South Sudanese army in Yambio. And she was a very, very nice but quite big female. And they said, please, please take her on the plane. So we did. And the other one, we named him Ali Kaka later on. A soldier had heard that this plane was coming to take chimpanzees, and they had him in their camp 200 kilometers away from Yambio. So he walked with this chimpanzee on his back all the way to Yambio so that the chimp could come to Kenya and come to the sanctuary.
So how many chimps did you bring across? 6?
That time 6.
Wow. And are they still there in the sanctuary?
They are still there in the sanctuary. We actually brought another 4 also during the war, altogether 10. But South Sudan, I must say, has done a fantastic job because they cared about the chimps. They cared about getting them to proper places, and they still do. And you know what? Alfred Akwach is still working. He's a senior advisor to the wildlife in South Sudan. And the CITES officer that used to be in Khartoum, Kamis Ding, he is now the CITES officer in Juba. So everybody's still there.
When you brought them across from Sudan, where did they go?
They had to come home to me because they're babies. They don't have a mother, so they need milk formula. You can imagine if you have a baby that's an orphan. What do you do? You have to feed it, you have to look after it, you have to give it lots of love. Because you also have to remember that these animals are so traumatized. They have witnessed their mother and the entire group being killed. It's just like a child that has witnessed their family being killed in a war. So it's not just to give them food, they also need the love so they get the security back to want to carry on and live.
So you took care of them all yourself?
Yes, well, I did have help of my Wanjiko, who is still with me. She's helped me a lot. So she's become a real fundi on bringing up baby chimps.
Wow. So you raised them to adulthood yourself?
We raised them until they were strong enough and strong enough psychologically as well, so that we could introduce them to the group of the adult chimps. There were lots of females there that had no babies. They wanted a baby. They said, bring the baby. And by this time, these babies were tough enough to say, yeah, I want to have a mommy. So we integrated them into the group. And it worked very well.
It was all successful?
Very successful.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that's really incredible that you raised them yourself in your own home.
Yes, in fact, I don't have any children of my own. And a lot of people say, what do you know about children? I said, well, I've had 28 hairy ones.
28, wow.
Yes.
Wow. And those all went straight into the group afterwards? They
have gone straight into the group. You know, some of them had to stay for a year and a half, some of them shorter. It all depends. It depends on also how traumatized they are and how small they are. And they're all now really, you know, self-secure little chimps, and they know where they're going, which is good.
So what do you do now?
I am still rescuing chimps. And last year I brought 4 chimps out of Sudan, again out of South Sudan, with the help of the same people. And they are now very happily on Ngamba Island in Uganda and doing very, very well. In fact, one of them's taken up painting. And
wow, so you work in Kenya as well as Uganda? Where else?
I have colleagues that have sanctuaries all over Africa. And you have to sort of find somewhere where, it's easy to bring them. I have brought lots of them and made sure that they got into sanctuary in South Africa as well. But it's so far and it's so expensive to bring them there. Uganda is closer to South Sudan. And in fact, I spoke to the people in South Sudan yesterday, and they're asking me, when are you coming back? We must go and see if there are more to rescue.
What got you into saving chimps?
It's needed. There's a few of us that do it in Africa, but unfortunately the black market has become so much bigger and is growing all the time. And it's high time that the authorities in the various countries, as well as CITES, really put some big law enforcement into this, because all the apes are going to disappear otherwise.
So would that be your message then out to people?
Absolutely. Law enforcement, and stop this nonsense. I mean, they should have the right to live in their natural habitat. But as long as they can't, you've got to rescue them and put them in sanctuaries so that they are safe, at least somewhere, until people get their senses together and stop cutting down the rainforest, and they will have a rainforest to return to.
Thank you, Annie.
Okay, thank you.